Free speech and its limits, that's the topic of tonight's Byline. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees freedom of expression. It's right at the top, which makes me think that the people who put the charter together, such as the late Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, thought it was pretty important. Freedom of speech ranks pretty high in the 1960 Bill of Rights brought in by Prime Minister John Diefenbaker. Despite the charter, the Bill of Rights also remains in effect. Yet now the Supreme Court is once again hearing a case that could seriously curtail freedom of speech or freedom of expression in this country. Why? It all has to do with the Saskatchewan Human Rights Tribunal and their ruling that Bill Whatcott's flyers denouncing homosexuality constitute hate speech. Whatcott's flyers may not be everyone's cup of tea, even he would admit that. In fact, he has before the tribunal and at court. But they are his opinions. His flyers do not call for violence against any specific group or against a specific person. They do not encourage violence. There can be no doubt that some people reading them would feel uneasy, maybe even a little freaked out. But does that make them a violation of the law, even a law as low as the Human Rights Code in Saskatchewan? The tribunal said yes and fined Whatcott $17,500 for producing and distributing his pages. Here's some of what he said or wrote that got him in trouble. Quote, "The Elementary School Teachers Union in Ontario voted this year in favor of this for grades 3 and 4, even though children at this age are more interested in playing Barbie and Ken rather than learning about how wonderful it is for two men to sodomize each other. Children in Ontario perform poorly in terms of academics. However, their teachers seem more interested in sexual politics of a perverted type rather than preparing children to do well when they are older. Now the homosexuals want to share their filth and propaganda with Saskatchewan's children." Another flyer with a half-naked man stated this: "We should be holding conferences on how to reinstate Canada's sodomy laws, not on how guys like this can be better accepted as your children's teachers. The Toronto School Board marches every year in this parade." And in another flyer, Whatcott photoed a page from a Saskatchewan gay newspaper or magazine that included an ad for a 28-year-old man searching for boys to exchange pictures with. Whatcott put the headline on a flyer which read, "Saskatchewan's largest gay magazine allows ads for men seeking boys." The ad was in with several others where people were advertising for sexual hookups. Now, Whatcott's language is shocking. It isn't what you'd hear at the faculty club. And that seems to be the problem, because otherwise he is being fined for generically hurting people's feelings. None of the people who complained to the Saskatchewan Human Rights Tribunal could have successfully sued Whatcott in a real court. He didn't name them, he didn't slander them, he didn't defame them. A generic group cannot sue. Now the Supreme Court will decide on whether hurt feelings can convict someone, whether emotions, and let us not forget that hate is an emotion, they will decide whether emotions can be criminalized. There is precedent for this in the Taylor case, but 20 years later, the court obviously wants to clarify something, or it would not have heard this case. You don't need to agree with the material in the flyers, but if you believe in free speech, you should be hoping that Bill Whatcott wins. And that's the Byline. And joining us now is the man at the center of this controversy, Bill Whatcott. He has spent the day at the Supreme Court, joins us in our Ottawa studio. Welcome to Ottawa. I'm guessing it was a grueling day before the Supreme Court?
It certainly was. It was an interesting day and a very important day in my life and certainly for all Canadians.
Now, a couple of the things that you said in the flyers that I don't think are criminal, but a lot of people would be, take a step back and say, oh, really? Do you think that gays and lesbians should be criminalized? It should be against the law? They should go to jail?
When you say gays and lesbians, let's interpret that. I believe sodomy should be illegal, and I won't apologize for that belief. It is what I believe. What I'm looking at is behavior. I'm not hating individuals. When I was in jail for pro-life, I ministered to many homosexual men. When I was a nurse, I cared for them when they were dying. I gave them the best of care. But of course, the reason why they were dying was because of this behavior. I believe it's harmful, and I don't believe it's appropriate for a society to celebrate it or sanction it.
And so you think that we should go back to the pre-1968 laws then?
Actually, I do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has that statement gotten you in trouble with the tribunal or the courts, or is it the other material that while you look at it and you say, well, obviously he doesn't like homosexuality or homosexual acts, but you're not calling for anyone to be hit, you're not calling for anyone to be attacked. Is that what got you in trouble, or is it the calling for it to be criminalized again?
I think the Human Rights Commission in their arguments today was a little disingenuous. They're claiming that it's extreme speech, but these same kangaroo courts that went after Bishop Fred Henry, whose pastoral letter was extremely moderate in my view, and I think in most people's views, they're just simply saying I'm too inflammatory. But I've seen them go after Scott Brocky, who was extremely reasonable in the way he presented himself.
And he was an Ontario printer who
yes, he was.
Declined to print some rather graphic material for a gay group in Toronto. Correct. And was taken to a Human Rights Commission and told, you must print it. You can't say, please find another printer.
That's right. And he was also lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and liability and whatnot. So, given that they're going after people like him and Mark Stein and Ezra Levant, I don't think that my inflammatory language, as much as what I believe and what I expressed, was the issue. It's just my inflammatory language might have inflamed them a little more.
Not what you hear at the faculty club, more what you hear on street corners.
On the other hand, my flyers don't get thrown out. You get lots of benign flyers. Mine get read.
Some of the people that have spoken out against you have claimed, and the tribunal may have claimed this in court today, have said that you claim that all homosexuals are predatory pedophiles. Do you claim that? Do you believe that?
That's a bold-faced lie. I've categorically denied that. I don't believe that. What I do believe, and what I'll never shy away from, there's empirical evidence to support my view, is that pedophilia is more accepted. It's more mainstream within the homosexual community. You certainly see books in gay bookstores celebrating man-boy love, as they call it. I call it child sexual abuse. You see signs at the Toronto Gay Parade calling for the repealing of age of consent laws. You certainly see NAMBLA marching within some homosexual parades. You see those ads in the magazine, the ones that you showed up there. You won't see that in a straight magazine, and I hope we never do, quite frankly. But no, I've never said all homosexuals are pedophiles. Never will say that. I won't deny, and I believe it to be true, that when you allow homosexuality, it is a slippery slope, and you're taking away sexual taboos and restraint. And it seems that inevitably an interest in children arises from that.
All right. Bill Whatcott, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can agree with his views, you can disagree, but do they belong in the courts? Send us your thoughts on that. Byline at sunmedia.ca. And we're not done with this topic yet. Stick around.